Hey everybody, thanks for watching. We are in day 14 of our Bible in a Year plan, reading Genesis 40 through 42 today. We're going to be talking about Joseph and kind of getting into some specifics. I did talk about this yesterday a little bit. This, for me, is always really fascinating to read, to see how God kind of used the situation that he was in, and, just in a crazy way, turned it into a vehicle to bring about redemption. We see echoes of the story of Jesus in this. We see just amazing traits of God in this, and it's a great story. Great. I always enjoy going back to the story of Joseph. So that's where we're going to be at today. Before we jump into it, we are going to be reading out of the CSB Bible. If this is your first time listening, you may not know that already. The Christian Standard Bible. I actually personally have a Christian Standard Bible, a apologetic study Bible. If that's interesting to you, you can see a link for it in the description. I also have a video that's linked in the description that is reviewing that Bible. Talking about some of the specifics of why I like it, why I enjoy it, and why I recommend it so highly. So we will, on that note, jump straight into it. So we're in Genesis 40. Maybe if I can set my screen up correctly. There we go. Okay, Genesis 40. And we'll start in verse 1 because that's the best place to start. After this, the king of Egypt's cupbearer and baker offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guards, in the prison where Joseph was confined. The captain of the guards assigned Joseph to them as their personal attendant, and they were in custody for some time. The king of Egypt's cupbearer and baker, who were confined in the prison, each had a dream. Both had a dream on the same night, and each dream had its own meaning. When Joseph came to them in the morning, he saw that they looked distraught. So he asked Pharaoh's officers, who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why do you look so sad today?" "We had dreams," they said to him, "but there is no one to interpret them." Then Joseph said to them, "Don't interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." So the chief cupbearer told his dream to Joseph. "In my dream, there was a vine in front of me. On the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, its blossoms came out, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. This is its interpretation," Joseph said to him. "The 3 branches are 3 days. In just 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position. You will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand the way you used to when you were the cupbearer. But when all goes well for you, remember that I was with you. Please show kindness to me by mentioning me to Pharaoh, and get me out of this prison. For I was kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing that they should put me in the dungeon." When the chief baker saw the interpretation was positive, he said to Joseph, "I also had a dream. 3 baskets of white bread were on my head. In the top basket were all sorts of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head." "This is its interpretation," Joseph replied. "The 3 baskets are 3 days. In just 3 days Pharaoh will lift up your head from off you and hang you on a tree. Then the birds will eat the flesh from your body." On the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he gave a feast for all his servants. He elevated the chief cupbearer and the chief baker among his servants. Pharaoh restored the chief cupbearer to his position as cupbearer, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But Pharaoh hanged the chief baker, just as Joseph had explained to him. Yet the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. At the end of 2 years, Pharaoh had a dream. He was standing beside the Nile, when 7 healthy-looking, well-fed cows came up from the Nile and began to graze among the reeds. After them, 7 other cows, sickly and thin, came up from the Nile and stood beside those cows along the bank of the Nile. The sickly, thin cows ate the healthy, well-fed cows. Then Pharaoh woke up. He fell asleep and dreamed a second time. 7 heads of grain, plump and good, came up on one stalk. After them, 7 heads of grain, thin and scorched by the east wind, sprouted up. The thin heads of grain swallowed up 7 plump, full ones. Then Pharaoh woke up, and it was only a dream. When morning came, he was troubled. So he summoned all the magicians in Egypt and all of its wise men. Pharaoh told them his dream, but no one could interpret them for him. Then the chief cupbearer said to Pharaoh, "Today I remember my faults." Pharaoh was angry with his servant, and he put me and the chief baker in the custody of the captain of the guards. He and I had dreams on the same night. Each dream had its own meaning. Now a young Hebrew, a slave of the captain of the guards, was with us there. We told him our dreams. He interpreted our dreams for us, and each had its own interpretation. It turned out just the way he interpreted them to us. I was restored to my position, and the other man was hanged. Then Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and they quickly brought him from the dungeon. He shaved, changed his clothes, and went to Pharaoh. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I have had a dream, and no one can interpret it. But I have heard it said about you that you can hear a dream and interpret it." "I am not able to," Joseph answered Pharaoh. "It is God who will give Pharaoh a favorable answer." So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "In my dream I was standing on the bank of the Nile, when 7 well-fed, healthy-looking cows came up from the Nile and grazed among the reeds. After them 7 other cows, weak, very sickly and thin, came up. I've never seen such sickly ones as these in all the land of Egypt. And then the thin, sickly cows ate the first 7 well-fed cows. When they had devoured them, you could not tell that they had devoured them. Their appearance was as bad as it had been before. Then I woke up. In my dream I also saw 7 heads of grain, full and good, coming up on one stalk. After them 7 heads of grain, withered, thin, and scorched by the east wind, sprouted up. The thin heads of grain swallowed the 7 good ones. I told this to the magicians, but no one can tell me what it means." Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, "Pharaoh's dreams mean the same thing. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads are 7 years. The dreams mean the same thing. The 7 thin, sickly cows that came up after them are 7 years, and the 7 worthless heads of grain, scorched by the east wind, are 7 years of famine. It is just as I told Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. 7 years of great abundance are coming throughout the land of Egypt. After then, 7 years of famine will take place, and all the abundance in the land of Egypt will be forgotten. The famine will devastate the land. The abundance in the land will not be remembered because the famine that follows it. For the famine will be very severe. Since the dream was given twice to Pharaoh, it means that the matter has been determined by God. He will carry it out soon. So now, let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man to set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, let him appoint overseers over the land and take 1/5 of the harvest of the land of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. Let them gather all the excess food during these good years that are coming. Under Pharaoh's authority, store the grain in the cities, so they may preserve it as food. The food will be reserved for the land during the 7 years of famine that will take place in the land of Egypt. Then the country will not be wiped out by the famine." The proposal pleased Pharaoh and all his servants, and he said to them, "Can we find anyone like this, a man who has God's Spirit in him?" So Pharaoh said to Joseph, "Since God has made all this known to you, There is no one as discerning and wise as you are. You will be over my house, and all my people will obey your commands. Only I, as king, will be greater than you." Pharaoh also said to Joseph, "See, I am placing you over all the land of Egypt." Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, clothed him with fine linen garments, and placed a gold chain around his neck. He had Joseph ride in his second chariot, and servants called out before him, "Make way." So he placed him over all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, and no one will be able to raise his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt without your permission." Pharaoh gave Joseph the name Zepinath Paneah, and gave him a wife, Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest at On, and Joseph went throughout the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Joseph left Pharaoh's presence and traveled throughout the land of Egypt. During the 7 years of abundance, the land produced outstanding harvest. Joseph gathered all the excess food in the land of Egypt during the 7 years and put it in the cities. He put the food in every city from the fields around it. So Joseph stored up grain in such abundance, like the sand of the sea, that he stopped measuring it because it was beyond measure. 2 sons were born to Joseph before the years of famine arrived. Asenath, daughter of Potiphera, priest of On, bore them to him. Joseph named the firstborn Manasseh, and said, "God has made me forget all my hardships and my whole family." And the second son he named Ephraim, and said, "God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction." Then the 7 years of abundance in the land of Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began, just as Joseph had said. There was a famine in the land, or in every land, but in the whole land of Egypt there was food. When the whole land of Egypt was stricken with famine, the people cried out to Pharaoh for food. Pharaoh told all Egypt, "Go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you." Now the famine had spread across the whole region, so Joseph opened up the storehouses and sold grain to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe in the land of Egypt. Every land came to Joseph in Egypt to buy grain, for the famine was severe in every other land. Chapter 42. When Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you keep looking at each other?" "Listen," he went on, "I have heard there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us, so that we will live and not die." So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt. But Jacob did not send Joseph's little brother Benjamin with his brothers, for he thought something might happen to him. The sons of Israel were among those who came to buy grain, for the famine was in the land of Canaan. Joseph was in charge of the country. He sold grain to all its people. His brothers came and bowed down before him with their faces to the ground. When Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he treated them like strangers and spoke harshly to them. "Where do you come from?" he asked. "From the land of Canaan to buy food," they replied. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Joseph remembered his dreams about them and said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the weaknesses of our land." "No, my lord, your servants have come to buy food," they said. "We are all sons of one man. We are honest. Your servants are not spies." "No," he said to them, "you have come to see the weaknesses of the land." But they replied, We, your servants, were 12 brothers, and the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. The youngest is now with our father, and one is no longer living." Then Joseph said to them, "I have spoken. You are spies. This is how you will be tested. As surely as Pharaoh lives, you will not leave this place unless your younger brother comes here. Send one from among you to get your brother. The rest of you will be imprisoned, so that your words can be tested to see if they are true. If they are not, then as surely as Pharaoh lives, you are spies." So Joseph imprisoned them together for 3 days. On the 3rd day, Joseph said to them, "I fear God. Do this and you will live. If you are honest and let one of you be confined to the guardhouse, while the rest of you go and take grain to relieve the hunger of your households, bring your youngest brother to me, so that your words can be confirmed." Then you won't die. And they consented to this. Then they said to each other, obviously we are being punished for what we did to our brother. We saw his deep distress, and when he pleaded with us, but would not listen, that is why this trouble has come to us. But Reuben replied, didn't I tell you not to harm the boy? But you wouldn't listen. Now we must account for his blood. They did not realize that Joseph understood them, since he was an interpreter between them. Or since there was an interpreter between them. He turned away from them and wept. When he turned back and spoke to them, he took Simeon, from them and had him bound before their eyes. Joseph then gave orders to fill their containers with grain, return each man's silver to his sack, and give them provisions for the journey. This order was carried out. They loaded the grain on their donkeys and left there. At the place where they lodged for the night, one of them opened a sack to get feed for his donkey, and he saw his silver there at the top of his bag. He said to his brothers, my silver has been returned. It's here in my bag. Their hearts sank, trembling. They turned to one another and said, what has God done to us? When they reached their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had happened to them. The man who is the lord of the country spoke harshly to us and accused us of spying on the country. But we told him we are honest and not spies. We were 12 brothers, sons of the same father. One is no longer living, and the youngest is now with our father in the land of Canaan. The man who is the lord of the country said to us, this is how I will know if you are honest. Leave one brother with me. Take food to relieve the hunger of your households, and go. Bring back your youngest brother to me, and I will know that you are not spies, but honest men. I will then give your brother back to you, and you can trade in the country. As they began emptying their sacks, there in each man's sack was a bag of silver. When they and their father saw their bags of silver, they were afraid. Their father Jacob said to them, it's me that you make childless. Joseph is gone, and Simeon is gone. Now you want to take Benjamin? Everything happens to me. Then Reuben said to his father, you can kill my 2 sons if I don't bring him back to you. Put him in my care, and I will return him to you. But Jacob answered, my son will not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he alone is left. If anything happens to him on your journey, you will bring my gray hairs down to Sheol in sorrow. Okay. That is 40, 41, and 42. Done for today. Again, I enjoy reading it. I enjoy seeing the connections, how God was able to orchestrate everything to flow perfectly into Joseph being in that position. I wanted to do this again. I did it yesterday. I've got 3 questions just to kind of get you thinking, to help you give some specifics to maybe meditate on as you're going through your day. Whether you listen to this in the morning, evening, whatever, or you can comment answering those questions and what your thoughts are, or you can comment something else if you want. But the 3 questions I wanted to touch on. Number 1, how do Joseph's interpretations of the dreams reflect his faith in God, and what can we learn from his attitude in prison? I think, like I said yesterday, I think what Joseph went through really humbled him and put him in a position where he just had to have faith in God. And we see, while he's in that situation, he does seem to. I think he's just trusting that things are going to work out. He knows that God is blessing his hands, and anytime he is put over anything, it does well. It succeeds. It flourishes. So I think there is some trust there that he's been able to cultivate, and just taking that to the next level. Question 2: what do you think is the significance of the dreams? Or what do you think the significance of dreams is in the biblical narrative, especially in Joseph's story? So I think that dreams are frequently seen as way that God or gods would communicate with people. And so dreams many times were seen to have some type of additional meaning or different meaning or something like that. So we see a lot of a dream interpretation. I think that's kind of why that is and where that is and why that's important. Question 3: how does Joseph's journey from prison to power challenge your understanding of God's timing and purpose in our lives? This one I've kind of touched on already. It's refreshing to see on this side of it, see what God does, how He orchestrates stuff, thinking that that same God is still who we serve today and still in charge of our lives is, I think, excuse me, I think definitely helps your mindset when going through difficult situations. So, I guess that's one way that it's kind of helped shape my view of God, His character. I can see that tangibly in some of the Old Testament stories, and then I've seen it tangibly in my own life too. So it's just additional evidence. But appreciate everyone sticking around through until the end. If you've stuck around to the end, appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Share this with other people. Word of mouth is the number one way that podcasts grow. So if you've been blessed by this, you think other people would be blessed by this, or they would get something out of it, or maybe they'd be interested in it, share it. Encourage them to watch, to comment, all that. If you have specific questions you want to ask, or you don't want to post it publicly, feel free to reach out. We are on X, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm most active on X, but I check messages for all of those as much as I can, as much as they come in. So appreciate that. Appreciate you watching, listening, all that good stuff. This has been enjoyment. I have enjoyed doing this. It's beneficial to me, additional reading, but also looking forward to what's coming up and what we're reading. And I hope it's been a lesson to you as well. So thanks for watching. God bless.